This is a podcast produced by Ashridge Business School.
Hi, I'm John Higgins, a Research Associate of Ashridge, and I'm here to talk about my new book, Images of Authority, Working Within the Shadow of the Crown. It's about the inside story of authority, the collision of the personal and the professional, and all the fantasies and ambitions that exist within people who are in formal positions of authority. More important than anything, it provides 18 actual examples of what it's like to be informed by your history rather than consumed by it. Because if you are in a position of authority, all sorts of ghosts from your past are going to be out and running about, just as much as those ghosts are going to be running about in people around you. The first and core finding of the book is that authority is always personal. You cannot untangle your own personal history from your experience of institutional authority. One of my first stories, Stella, who is a well-renowned filmmaker, she talks about how the experience of being a counsellor to her mother by the age of 8 has led to her having huge difficulties dealing with fragile women in positions of authority throughout her working life. As well as the personal, there's always tough stuff that needs to be processed and digested. Sam, who had actually started off life as a deputy head teacher and is now the head of a teenage counselling service of national regard, talks about how impossible it is for him to do his work unless he takes significant amounts of time out to deal with all the stuff that walks in the door every day, all that teenage angst. If he doesn't actually stop and make sure it's not staying with him, he'll be unable to function as a chief executive. Part of dealing with this tough stuff is to actually realise that you have limits. In two of the stories, Thomas talks to the experience of, in his mid to late 30s, realising that he just didn't have a tough enough skin to make it in the corporate world. There were one or two players around him who were extremely well versed in hooking his most childlike and incompetent responses. So he was unable to pursue the top post and has had to step back. There is another woman, Lucy, who is actually very fully aware that she cannot abide the loneliness that she believes will come with being the chief executive, so she stays at the board level. And part of knowing your limits is to realise that being in authority comes at a price. In most of the stories, there's a realisation that something has had to be sacrificed, that actually some personal bounce, some relationships have had to be put on the back burner, and there will be a price. It's not a matter of balance and judgment and some mysterious magical whole making everything good. There will be a cost. Authority has, without a shadow of a doubt, a million different meanings. It certainly had 18 different meanings for the people I interviewed. One leading cancer researcher spoke of it as no more than institutional housework. Her husband spoke of it as being a duty, a responsibility. Others spoke more fondly of the power that it made available to them. And one other said that it was something they stepped into in order to prevent other people taking it on and getting in the way of their ambitions. When you step into a position of formal authority, people will treat you differently. You cannot go on being one of the boys or one of the girls. You become an outsider. People will project their experience of their own childhood onto you. You will become a father figure or a mother figure. At an even more extreme level, some people may even treat you as a god, as was the case in one of the stories, where over 2,000 people handed over their responsibility, their dreams, their lives to this one individual. And it would be a godlike person who could reject such an offer to become a god. In particular, this book is for anybody in a position of authority or who aspires to a position of authority from any walk of life. It draws on people from the arts and from business, from the public and the private sector, accountants, lawyers, film directors. I recommend this book to you as a device to help you think more strongly, more clearly about how your past is currently informing your present experience of authority. To recap, Images of Authority is the inside experience of authority. It's messy, it's alive, and it's emotionally charged. It's what it's actually like, not what people tell you it should be like.
This podcast was produced by Ashridge Business School.